My name is Adam. I'm an aspiring filmmaker, a photographer, a bit of an adventurer, and most recently, a nomad. I'm back on the road and I'm not doing it alone. I'm teaming up with other travelers chasing the same dreams as me, to live life on our own terms. From exploring their rigs to unveiling their lifestyles, we explore what the pursuit of Borderless looks like. Being from the East Coast, I never got to spend any real time in the desert, until now. For the past 6 months, I've become a desert dweller. I've gotten to travel the entire southern border, all the way to California and as far north as Utah. The sand dunes, the mountains, the rocks. It's like a big sandbox for me and my cameras to play in. I've learned that there are 4 major deserts in the Southwest. And based on elevation, wind, rain, and annual temperature swings, they all look completely different. But the number one thing I learned is 6 months is not enough time. The peaceful stillness and silence, it's a landscape frozen in time, and the size and scale leaves me with a sense of awe and wonder. But there is one thing bigger that can really help put life into perspective. And what the desert lacks, this place has in abundance. After spending so much time in the Southwest, I forgot how magical the ocean really is. Where the desert feels so still, the sea feels so alive. It's in constant motion and rhythm, and shifting degrees of strength and power. When I first started traveling, it was all centered around a love for the ocean. But the ocean will humble you. As soon as you enter its waters, you discover that you are the visitor, and you are not in control. Fighting it is pointless, so you must learn to work with it. Learn how to flow. But it was on these surf trips that I discovered a deep love for my camera, documenting the best moments of my life in the most beautiful places I had ever seen. But my first surf trip wasn't anywhere tropical. In fact, it was late fall and I was chasing hurricane swell right here in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. 30 miles from the mainland, these islands skirt the coast for 200 miles. At 3 miles at its widest point, it's only 150 yards at its narrowest, and it's unlike any place I have ever been. From the first flight to the first attempted English colony in the New World, historically, the Outer Banks has been a place where people come to pioneer the future. But in modern days, people migrate here for summer vacations. And as the seasons change and people leave, another group visits the island. Each winter, thousands of birds stop here during their migratory trip south for the winter. And just like birds of a feather flock together, the same can be said about nomads. This is my first trip back here in over 10 years, and I'm getting to link up and explore these islands with my oldest nomad friend. There are only 3 ways to get to the Outer Banks. The 2 bridges to the north, and the ferry from the south. And the ferry is where I met up with my buddy Bryce for our reunion at sea as we headed to the southern tip of the Outer Banks. This is also Bryce's first trip to the Outer Banks and our first trip together. We met over 5 years ago, and we've crossed paths on the road over the years, but we've never gotten our calendars lined up until now. Bryce is what I like to call a master builder and designer, a true craftsman and creative. His last 2 builds are some of the best I've ever seen online or in real life. They're actually pieces of art he decides to live in. So I finally got to sit him down and pick his brain on how he comes up with these amazing designs.
Being able to design the interior of a build, make it original and make it your own, I think that's very, very cool. Figuring out how to fit everything into a tiny space, making things where it works for one thing but also works for another thing, I think that's really awesome. And then I think it's important to love the space that you're living in as well. Does it make you happy? Does it make you smile? When you're laying in bed at night, looking around your little tiny space that you live in, you know, does it make you happy?
Our first night in the Outer Banks was a very memorable moment for sure. We drove as far south as we could down a sandy road to a remote spot I found online. But after only a few hours, we discovered we set up camp too far down in the marsh, and the tide had come in and we were parked in 8 inches of water. So we found some high ground and we got to catch up as we watched the night sky for a few hours. Being so far away from all the light pollution, it was one of the best night skies I've ever seen.
I'm going to tell the story of how we met. So I just bought a school bus and I see a lovely colored green painted school bus in this parking lot. That's the first school bus I'd ever seen, like not online.
That was the first time.
First time I'd ever seen one.
Wow.
Whip in the parking lot and go knock on your door, no answer. So I go around to the other side, like knock on the window, no answer. So I run back to the car and I write a little love note. I like your school bus. I'd love to talk to you about your paint job. Here's my phone number, whatever. And I'm like putting it on the windshield. And then all of a sudden I see creeping through the blinds, I see you poke your head out. And I'm like, oh, he caught me.
I was doing my laundry at a coin laundry spot. And I was in the bus waiting for my laundry to dry, chilling. And I hear a knock on the door. I just remember finally coming to the door and opening it up, and you were standing there. And we started talking. You were asking me about the paint job. And then I remember you looked inside and saw my upper cabinet, and you immediately recognized me from pictures you'd seen on Instagram. I thought that was pretty awesome because you were like, oh, you're Green Coffee Bean Bus. So that was pretty awesome. You were the first person that recognized me from Instagram that I'd seen in real life, so I thought that was kind of cool.
Bryce and I struck up a fast friendship after that first awkward meeting. In fact, he came to help me finish my bus from time to time whenever he was in town for work. And as we've crossed paths on the road over the years, Bryce has always gotten attention for his builds. And the Outer Banks was no different. On the first day, the only other van on the island found us and wanted to see his build. Bryce is like the cool kid in school. He's got the cool car, he's got the cool style and the tattoos, and you just feel cooler when you're around him. But on top of all that, he's just flat out talented. Not only is he an amazing craftsman and designer, but he's also a talented photographer.
For me, it's just trying to capture the moment and being able to look back and it bring back the memories.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest part for me. Yeah, just trying to capture amazing moments.
What's your favorite photo you've ever taken?
Probably the one of me on top of a mast, sailboat mast in the Great Barrier Reef.
I love that picture.
That's probably my favorite one.
What do you think that traveling full-time in the past 5 years has taught you about life?
Maybe how to go with the flow. I'm a very spontaneous person, and I only plan so far ahead, and I like to kind of like go with the flow, and I feel like spontaneous moments are better than trying to plan everything out. Being able to figure out problems on the go, I think it keeps you on your toes.
Problem solving.
It is, yeah, it's problem solving.
At the end of the day, you can't come home and like 100% relax like you could in like a house or an apartment, right? There is always like, am I gonna get kicked out of this parking lot? Is the tide gonna come in and I'm gonna get stuck out here in the marsh, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I think the key is to enjoy the journey as well and slow down a little bit. I'm a big believer in that. That's the main thing for me is just, I don't want to get too comfortable and get stuck in a rut and like have a 9-to-5 job.
Was living the nomadic life part of that process for you to like not get stuck?
Definitely. I mean, at some point, if I find a place that I love, I'm gonna want to settle down and buy a place. But right now, it's more about seeing new places and just trying to see the world a bit. And the van life allows me to do that a lot more. Like being able to wake up next to an ocean.
Right.
And just open your doors and hear the waves crashing. And do that in a van instead of a $3 million house.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it.
The winter is the off season for the Outer Banks, so it kind of felt like we had the island to ourselves. So we spent time visiting museums and learning a lot about lighthouses. Here are some fun facts. The Ocracoke Lighthouse is the southernmost lighthouse and also the oldest one in the Outer Banks. It was built 200 years ago and it stands 75 feet tall. The current version of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse is 198 feet tall. It sits at the furthest eastern point of the Outer Banks and it survived an estimated 40 plus hurricanes. The original lighthouse there was built in 1803 and was 90 feet tall. 50 years later, they made improvements and added 60 feet to its height. Currently, this is the third version and was built in 1870. And in 1999, it was moved from its original location more than 2,000 feet back away from the ocean due to erosion. So we set up camp at the original location of the third version of this historic lighthouse to dive into the history of Bryce's nomadic journey and to discuss his third version of his home on wheels.
My cousin actually asked me if I wanted to come work with his company, which was a traveling company, which I'm still with. And that got me out of my hometown and started me on the road traveling to different places. And once I started doing that, I got the itch to just move around and see as many places as I could. This is my third build. The first one was in Australia, and it was just a basic build. But I learned a lot from it. And my job back here is a traveling job. I work in the power industry, so I had been living in hotels and was kind of tired of that. So I just decided after I left Australia, I was gonna build a camper when I got home. And I was gonna do a van, but found a really cheap bus to start with. And yeah, started building.
What drew you to a bus?
It was kind of the fact that I didn't have a ton of money at the time. So I wanted to buy something cheap and still have money left over to put into it. So that was kind of my thought process. I felt like I could buy a bus for cheaper than I could buy any other camper. And I thought it was very unique.
Yeah.
The school bus community. I thought it was something kind of original. The van in Australia, I got it done in about a month. And the bus was about 3 months. When I was building out the bus, I actually got a little overwhelmed, probably 2 months in, and almost didn't continue because there was a point where I just was tired of building. It kind of seemed like it was too much, but I kind of pushed through that point, and I'm happy I did because a month or two after that, I was living in it and finally like back to where kind of the feelings that I was getting in Australia traveling around with the bus here.
Bryce's bus was truly special. The first tiny house festival I ever went to was in North Carolina, and Bryce showed up in his bus as a spectator, but the event organizers convinced him to be a participant. And so without warning, Bryce opened up his bus to the public and gave tours for hours. In fact, on his lunch break, I gave tours, and it was the coolest I've ever felt. The next tiny house festival I saw Bryce at was in Georgia, but this time I got to be a participant. I just finished my bus and I was excited to be at one of the largest tiny house festivals on the East Coast. And Bryce easily won the award for best build for the entire festival. And after that, he started getting featured in magazines for his build. So I was super surprised when I found out he was going to sell it and start from scratch.
Driving it around, I put a lot of miles on the road, so yeah. I got a little tired of driving it every day. So that's kind of why I wanted to get
Was it difficult to drive, the bus?
It wasn't difficult to drive, it just, you couldn't go fast. It didn't have cruise control. That was the worst part. Like doing long drives, your foot would swell up.
My bus didn't have cruise control either.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Isn't it?
I mean, you're doing long drives.
Terrible.
And I was kind of itching to build something else.
You like to build?
I did.
Yeah.
I've worked in construction since I was 15. So when I was younger, I would build things out of wood as well. I always loved to work with my hands. So yeah, so I have quite a lot of experience, but I don't really have too much of a background with design. So I just kind of know what I like and then just kind of put it all together. I don't know where it comes from, but I guess maybe it's part of my soul. This is a 2020 Ford Transit. It's got a 2.5-inch lift kit, upgraded suspension, and bigger wheels and tires. I do have a porthole and some other windows that I've added in. Moving around, I've added Raptor lining along the bottom section of the van. So in the front, I added 2 swivel seats and a bench seat here. Inside the bench seat is shoe storage, and I have an amp and a subwoofer there. This obviously moves to the middle, so you can seat 4 people here if you wanted to. So on the walls, I used 3/4-inch plywood that I routed in grooves to make it look like shiplap. And in the grooves, I painted them black and then painted green on the outside. For the hexagon tile, I had to jigsaw in each one so they would fit inset into the plywood. I think it kind of adds a little bit something to look at. The countertops that I designed, they have a matte finish on them. I think it looks good. It's an olive wood and black resin. And then I have an induction cooktop. And it was important for me to have a deep sink. So this is a black stainless steel sink. I also have a filtered water system in here and a soap dispenser there as well. The design on the cabinet, upper cabinet faces was organic. I just wanted something a little bit different. I wanted it to have some sort of design on it, so I ended up routering these grooves in here to make it kind of just add a little something to it. So I'm 6'1", so it was important for me to save the space with my bed sleeping sideways instead of having the bed go this way, lengthwise. So I added the flare spaces on the sides to give me that extra room that I needed. And then just framing them out with some wood, some cedar wood to make it look good. I think it's important to have good lighting in your camper as well. I think certain lights give you a homely feel as well, like this one. I think it gives it kind of a homely feel. It's on a dimmer, so you can kind of set the mood however you want it. I do have your standard puck lights up here on a dimmer as well. And I did frame out around them to kind of give it an extra little pop, I guess you could say. Also have some puck lights underneath the upper cabinet here. On this side, I have kind of a standing desk top, and I wanted it to be the same color as the kitchen, but kind of a different design. Underneath, I have a trash can and a dirty laundry, which I think are both very important in a van. The ceiling is a poplar wood. So on the Ford Transits, on the high roof, they have quite the bend in the ceiling. So being able to bend the wood, you can either heat it up or if it's thin enough, you're able to bend it with the curve. So that's what I was able to do with this part in the front. This is a shower head that I installed for my shower inside. This just pops up. I have a toilet and a stainless steel shower basin in there. And I have a shower curtain that comes up and hooks to the ceiling here. And then it has a zipper that you can climb in and zip it up and shower. But I like the concept of having a standard shower head that you would have in a house. So this is my garage. I have an outdoor shower here. I have the freshwater tank, and this is a freshwater tank drain if I ever need to drain the fresh water. I have 2 big tool drawers here that pull out. And then on this side, my electrical is under the bed. Everything's accessible, easily accessible with the cutoff switches and panels on that side. And then this is a nice mountain range. It's been a way for me to be creative, figuring out how to fit everything into a tiny space. It's not easy, and I think it's really cool to like come up with different designs, and it's kind of a way to show off your art in a way to people. Something that I think I'm pretty proud of it that I was able to do this, so it's fun to like show people.
My original pitch for this trip was to reconnect, explore, and find some surf. But the ocean was unseasonably peaceful and calm. But don't let these beautiful views fool you. These islands are also known as the graveyard of the Atlantic. With its shallow waters and shifting sands, frequent storms, and the intersection point of 2 major ocean currents, the Outer Banks has claimed over 3,000 recorded shipwrecks. But what's bad for ships is good for surfers.
People say we live in vans, but you know, we live out of the van, right? You use the van as the vehicle to go and live the life that you desire. Exactly. How do you take advantage of living out of the van? Like, what are the things that you do?
I like a lot of sports. So for me, it's surfing, golf. I like to skate. Yeah, it allows me to kind of go wherever and do that.
When did you start surfing?
I think my first surf was when I was like maybe 13. Obviously, I wasn't good at it.
Who is when they first start? When I first moved to the beach, I was so gung-ho about wanting to learn how to surf. I bought a surfboard right away. Had no knowledge of what I was buying or anything. And I bought, I believe it was a 5'7" short little gun.
That was your first board?
First board.
Great board to learn on.
Great board to learn on. So it took me forever to stand up.
I mean, if you learn on that, you can surf anything, I guess.
Oh, that's not true at all, because I still suck at it.
Yeah, that's a hard sport.
It's, you know, it's the sport could be summed up as the best surfer is the one that's having the most fun.
I agree with that.
And I think that goes into life.
That's definitely my philosophy as well.
Like, sure, you can have $1 million trillion. Are you gonna win at life? Well, you can't take that with you. Like, I measure success in life as like how many laughs are you having? Like where's your joy meter at? It's not about working really, really hard and being a billionaire at the end of your life. It's about like taking the time while you're in your best years and using that time to gather experiences that are gonna enrich your life for the future.
Right. It's probably not a great strategy for becoming money rich.
No.
But I think it's
I can
better
100% tell you, this is not the way to get rich.
No.
I do not do this. If dollar bills are your main objective, this is not the lifestyle for you.
No, it's not the best strategy for that, but I don't care.
I don't either.
It's not my goal is to become the richest person in the world, money-wise.
Yeah.
Maybe the richest person in experiences and freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom to travel.
Time rich.
Yep. I would rather have this rich.
In the late 15th century, where others failed, pirates thrived. They learned to leverage the treacherous terrain of the Outer Banks for their advantage, using specialized, lightweight ships that could navigate these dangerous waters. They mapped and monitored where others wouldn't go, and they used the protection of the barrier islands as hideouts and shelters during storms. And these pirates became so successful that hundreds of years later, we tell their stories about lost and hidden treasures that they left behind, the riches they couldn't take with them. And nomads aren't all that different from pirates. We live in specialized vehicles to go to places where most people can't. We leverage our skills to live a life that most people won't. We monitor our joy and happiness and map out new paths for the future. But where pirates stole their riches from others, we steal back time for ourselves. Our plunder is the feeling of freedom, and our treasures grow when we share them with others. We travel place to place, migrating with the weather, and we always keep an eye on the horizon and search for new experiences to add to our riches. Next time on Becoming Borderless, I reflect on the past and dream of the future. This dream to travel started over 10 years ago, and I've picked up a few lessons along the way. From a world traveler to a wandering nomad, every setback, every adventure has helped me shape a unique perspective on life. But sometimes you have to look back at where you've been to know where you're going next.